Well, it seems that these two boys, Dov and Yehudah, decided to go to China. Why China? It was far away, it was different, and they thought to themselves, we'll have an adventure there. Now, how are they going to get there? They didn't have any money, so they stowed away, which means they hid, on a ship that went from Israel to China. There are many things made in China. Many of the things that you buy in Israel and the United States are made in China. And they thought to themselves, well, we'll get jobs there, and we'll make money, and we'll become rich, and we'll become happy and comfortable, and we'll live lives of leisure and pleasure. Well, when they got to China, it wasn't what they expected. For one thing, they landed in a place called Lapchung, which was not a big city where they expected there would be many things to do and many jobs to be had, but rather a small port city, a place where ships came in and picked up and delivered goods, and no one spoke anything but Chinese. And not only that, the people seemed kind of unhappy, kind of, maybe angry. It seemed as if lives were not very good in Lapchung. And the boys were a little worried because this is not what they expected. Well, they had no place to sleep and nothing to eat and no money and no nothing. Just the clothes on their back and a few things in their little suitcases. So they went to sleep in a park. It was summertime and it was warm. In fact, it was hot. In fact, it was really hot. In fact, it was like really, really hot, like Tel Aviv in the summertime, with no wind and just really a lot of humidity. The air was thick like soup. Why, they could barely breathe. But they were so tired because they didn't sleep very well on the ship that they were hiding in that they fell asleep immediately into a deep, deep, deep sleep. Well, when they woke up, which was many hours later, they realized that their two little suitcases were gone. Someone took them while they were sleeping, and they had now nothing at all. In fact, even the pieces of bread that they had sitting in bags in their pocket had been taken out. So it appeared that people there must be very poor and very hungry. That was the bad news. The good news is that they still had their clothes. Well, not all their clothes. Someone took their shoes, which were lying next to the suitcase. They weren't used to this kind of thing. And so they decided, we'd better go and see if we could find some work. There must be something for two strong young boys to do. So they walked into the town and walked down a street where there were many factories. They could hear the machines humming and clicking and chopping and making sounds like machines always make. All kinds of sounds. Every shop had a different kind of sound. Click, 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 click. Whir, whir, whir. Many different sounds. They didn't know which one to pick. So they walked into a shop and looked around, and there were people working. They didn't notice. It's a shame that they didn't notice. But they didn't notice that all the people, men and women, working in this shop were attached to the machines with a chain and a lock on their foot. They didn't see that. And they went up to the man who seemed to be in charge, who was a short, kind of fat kind of mean-looking man with little sharp teeth. And they said to him, "Excuse me, sir, perhaps there's some work for us to do here?" And the man looked up, and he looked at them, and he said, "What? You want work?" He spoke English. "What, you want work? I'll be glad to give you work." And he called out to some people who were nearby, two very big, strong, hairy, ugly men who walked up and grabbed the boys and sat them down at one of the machines and locked their feet to the machine and said, because these guys didn't speak any English at all. But the little evil guy, he walked up to them and he said, "Okay, you wanted to work. Now you can work." And he brought over a little old lady who would teach them, supposed to teach them how to do the job. Now she looked like a sweet old lady, and she was sort of like a little silly looking, with a silly smile on her face. And it turned out she spoke English too. And she walked up to them and said, "Hi boys, I'd be happy to teach you how to use this machine, but I'm sorry to tell you that you will be locked to the machine until it's time for you to go home. And then, home, home is a room right downstairs. And now all the doors are locked, and you will never be able to leave. We will give you food. We will give you things that you need, like water. You'll have bread. You'll have maybe a little piece of chicken once in a while if you're lucky. But life here is not like it was wherever you came from." Well, the boys were very unhappy about this, and they thought to themselves, "We have to get out of here. We have to escape." But how? How? They were locked to the machine. They looked down at their foot, and they thought, "Oh, we certainly can't get out while we're working." It turned out that working wasn't so bad. The machine was kind of interesting. It made hats. It made all kinds of different hats. You would take a piece of material, and you would stick it into the machine, and you would push various levers and pedals with your feet, and squirt in some funny kind of gluish material, and sure enough, the machine would go plop and push on a mold which would force the material with heat into a shape and slap a band around it, and pop out would come a hat, just like the kind of hats you can see sold in the stores wherever you go, in Israel or in the United States, and it says, "Made in China." Well, they worked all day after learning how to use the machine, and then it came time for them to be released, if you could call this being released. They would unlock the chain, and the big, strong, hairy, ugly, smelly men would march them down the stairs into another room where there were long tables, and then another old lady would come out and serve them the food, a piece of bread, a glass of water. The water didn't taste very good, and the bread was stale, but the boys were like really hungry, really hungry. They didn't have any shoes, you may remember, so pressing on the pedals with their feet had sort of made them a little raw, and their fingers were all tired and their hands were tired, but they were hungry, and they just gobbled up the stale bread and drank down the water, and they thought to themselves, "Oh,